Good morning everyone. My name's Anna and you're very welcome in my home today. I'd like to talk to you about the 6 reasons that I love Advent. I wonder how you're feeling at this stage in December. We all have different pressures on us, but I know for me and many of my friends it can feel in December as if we've got onto a hamster wheel and we can't get off. The speed just keeps increasing the closer you get to Christmas. Primary school children help with that. You may know people with December birthdays, which adds extra into the mix. And of course, illness can throw things off course. I personally am a big fan of Christmas, but the pressure can fill up your head until there's no room left, and it's just something to be got through. The new variant coming in may change some of that. It already is, but possibly unsettle us too. Might make us feel as if the ground we're standing on isn't as secure as we thought. What we need is an antidote to all of this. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Advent. When I first chose this topic several months ago, I wondered if it might feel as if I'd missed the boat, because I'm talking about it 3 Sundays into Advent. But considering recent events, it seems to me more and more needed by the day. So, if I played a word association game with you and I said Advent, I wonder what comes into your head. I'll say it again, Advent. When I played this with my children, the words that came into their heads were candle, wreath, and chocolate. They're all lovely words, but to Christians, Advent should and must mean so much more. The first Sunday of Advent, as I say, was 3 Sundays ago, before December even began, 28th of November. Every Sunday between that day and Christmas, traditional churches will be lighting a candle, one each week as Christmas approaches. The candles are in a wreath shaped in a circle to symbolise the eternity of God and represent different things. I wonder if you know what the candles represent. Apparently, they represent expectation or faith, hope, joy, and purity or peace. Some wreaths also have a white candle in the centre, symbolising Christ, which is only lit on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. The lighting of the candles is accompanied by the reading out of a Bible verse, so the expectation of Jesus coming and all that it means builds week by week. The word Advent actually means coming. You might have heard people talk about the advent of television or the advent of the internet. It's from the Latin root veni. Those of you who speak French may recognise the verb venir, to come. Je viens, I come. An ancient monastic hymn of Advent is called Veni, Veni, Emmanuel, or O come, Emmanuel. The tune is hauntingly lovely, evoking that longing that Advent brings. It's one of my favourite Christmas songs, and hopefully you'll see a video of it at the end. But to me, the excitement of Advent is not just about knowing something wonderful is coming. There's joy in the waiting and the preparation. A lovely Advent book that I've had for a long while is called The Art of Waiting. I'd really recommend it to you. As a child, the excitement I felt waiting for Christmas was almost too great to bear. I knew there would be amazing dinner, gifts, extra time with my family. I loved that feeling, and I know I'm very privileged to have had that. Even if you didn't experience that as a child, I pray that your faith in God now, however small, can open that door of excitement for you this year, because there's so much to be excited about. There are 6 reasons I love Advent, and I've managed to title each of them with the letters of that word. So the first is beginning with A, and it is already but not yet. I'd never fully put this into words before, but as I started to prepare for this sermon, I realised that Advent is like a mini version of the now and the not yet that Christians often talk about. The now and the not yet means we know Jesus will return to Jesus will return to earth one day. He hasn't yet. But right now we can enjoy some of the benefits of his heavenly kingdom. For example, prophecy, healings, the fruit and work of the Spirit. We aren't there fully because Jesus hasn't returned. We have to wait for that fulfillment, and that waiting is often hard. But it can be exciting. So Advent is like a mini now and not yet, because we can so clearly see Christmas coming, but it's not quite here. The second point starts with a D for delay. As I've grown and matured as a Christian, I've come to appreciate that waiting is an integral part of our Christian life. I still find it really hard in lots of ways. All of us will have answers to prayer, for example, that we're still waiting on. God doesn't always rush to answer them. Have you noticed that? He often wants us to wait, and then wait, and wait some more. When I was very little, we would go every Christmas Eve to the home of my great auntie Ivy. She was an unmarried lady who seemed very old to me then, and very old-fashioned. She wasn't used to children, so we were on best behaviour. And I must admit, I used to feel incredibly relieved when that lunch was done. But after she died, it was discovered that she had been a bit of a poet and written some lovely verses about her faith in Jesus. I still remember a line from one of the poems we found, and it said, "Don't expect miracles wrought. Give things a chance to come right." Now, I don't know if your theology lines up with the first half of that line. Perhaps you think we should be expecting miracles wrought. But it struck me even as a child that Auntie Ivy had learned through many years of living the Christian life that waiting on God is something we all need to conquer. I recently read in Pete Gregg's book, God on Mute, a story told by Jewish rabbis, which I wanted to share with you. Pete Gregg said, "The Hasidic masters tell an old rabbinic story to explain why God often delays the granting of our heart's desire. There is a king who has 2 sons. Each of them comes to receive his gift from the royal table. The first son appears at his father's doorway, and as soon as he is seen, his request is granted. The father holds this son in low esteem and is annoyed by his presence. The king orders that the gifts be handed to his son at the door so he will not approach the table. Then the king's beloved son appears. The father takes great pleasure in the son's arrival and does not want him to leave too quickly. For this reason, the king delays granting his request, hoping that the son will then draw near to him. The son comes closer. He feels the father's love so deeply that he does not hesitate to stretch forth his own hand to the royal table." I wonder what you think of that story. Pete Gregg takes from it that the Father's deepest desire for our lives is that we would dwell in his courts and thereby come into a more fulfilling relationship with him. Contrary to appearances, he writes, the son whose desires were not immediately gratified was, in fact, the most blessed. In God's kingdom, happiness is not marked out primarily by popularity, fat bank accounts, or clean bills of health, but rather by proximity to the Father. That waiting on him and being with him. So we come to our third point. V is for valuable life lessons. I love Advent because it teaches us not only to wait, but to cherish the days. We are, knowingly or unknowingly, training our children in this when we introduce traditions like Advent calendars or Advent candles into our home. We're showing them how much there is to enjoy about the journey of life, and that it's not just about the destination. When we get to an age that we understand more about all the special things December can hold, I don't think, and I might be wrong, but I don't think many of us would fast forward to the day itself as we would have done when we were kids. Because even though it can get incredibly pressurised and fast-paced, walking through the days one day at a time and trying to breathe deeply and experience different pleasures on different days helps us cherish each day by itself, not just to be ticked off a chart. This is a valuable life lesson and extremely important to mental health, we now know. Those who meditate, and that's not just monks. Microsoft founder Bill Gates is known to meditate, as is footballer Raheem Sterling. People talk about how it helps them to step back, slow down, and quiet the loud voices in their heads. All of us could do with a bit of that. So my next point starts with an E, easing the pace. I love Advent because it encourages us to slow down. And this is, I guess, ironic because of what everything else in our culture encourages us to do, but needed all the more because of that. I'm very much in favour of slowing down. If you ask my husband, he might tell you that this isn't necessarily borne out by my actions, but I promise you, even thinking of slowing down, especially at this time of year, blesses me. Jesus led by example in encouraging his disciples to do this, didn't he? To spend time with God in prayer and reflection. The more busy it got, the more he encouraged them. And if that was important then, how much more important is it now that we've invented cars, planes and speedboats, washing machines, dishwashers, smartphones, all things which save us time but simultaneously make us feel more rushed? Have you heard the phrase, "Stop the world, I want to get off"? I felt like that a lot lately. Many of us need to take deliberate steps to slow down. So N, and this I admit is contrived, N is for antidote. Linked to what I said earlier, Advent is an antidote to modern life, a desperately needed antidote. Many of us say yes to too much because technically we can get it done, but actually maybe we shouldn't. Many of you will have heard me talk before about a very special Christian community that I have visited on several occasions called Library, which means the shelter. There's one in Hampshire where I go, but they are all over the world as well. Walking through the old wooden porch of this manor house and into the large faded hallway gives me goosebumps, as I will feel a warm flood of joy and recognition go through me, because I experience time slowing down when I am there. All that is required of me when I'm at Library is to spend each morning reading and studying God's Word, often by a fire, and each afternoon helping out in the slow rhythms of the community, peeling potatoes perhaps for dinner, packing the dishwasher, digging in the garden. Whatever they need doing is all I need to do at that time. What's so amazing about that, you might ask? Well, for me, what's so amazing is that I am entirely in the unrushed present when I'm away there. I don't have to manage a household and answer the constant demands of the smartphone, children, work or home life. I don't even have to drive or necessarily cook because the community shares out the cooking. I usually turn off my phone, and I can tell you that experiencing a slowed down existence is priceless. My challenge to you this Advent is, how will you seek out opportunities to slow down? If that doesn't seem possible, how can you make it possible? What can you cancel? My last point is T for the light. So much of Advent is about light, and I just find that wonderful and so needed. The lighting of Advent candles, the lights on the tree. Fairy lights and candle lights, incidentally, are two of the best kind of lights in my opinion, and we have them both in Advent. Many more people are putting up lights outside their homes these days, I've noticed. Twinkly, small lights that bring joy to the soul when you walk past them on a dark dog walk. Light is an important biblical symbol, of course. Jesus was described as the light of the world. I love that verse in John chapter 1, which says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." The contemporary English version says, "The light keeps shining in the dark, and darkness has never put it out." Last year, I'm not sure if it was to do with the lockdowns and the disappointment of last Christmas, but candlelight became very important to me at Christmas time and into the new year. I found it quite mesmerising and soothing and necessary all at once. I longed for it like never before. I thought about how in Scandinavia they have a special word about the quality of light called hugar. They talk about getting together with loved ones around a fire or a soft light like a candle. And I put this picture on my WhatsApp profile at the time. A Catholic lady that I pray with regularly pointed out to me that at the conclusion of Epiphany, which we don't celebrate in our type of church, but is the feast of the Three Kings, is Candlemas. So Candlemas comes at the end of Epiphany, and in France and Belgium, tradition states that on Candlemas evening, all the candles in the house are lit. I find the thought of that really beautiful and full of hope, especially at this dark, cold time of year. Coming to an end now, and I wanted to go back to the hymn I mentioned earlier. So when it was translated in 1861, it had these words: "O come thou dayspring, come and cheer our spirits by thine advent here. Disperse the gloomy clouds of night, and death's dark shadows put to flight. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel, shall come to thee, O Israel." I found an 1851 translation by J.M. Neal, which says this: "Draw nigh, thou Orient, who shalt cheer and comfort by thine advent here, and banish far the brooding gloom of sinful night and endless doom." I hope that brings a smile to your face today and a deeper joy as you share in Advent. And I wish you all a very happy Advent. God bless you.
O come, Emmanuel, to free your captive Israel, that mourns in lonely exile here, until the Son of God appear. Rejoice, rejoice, O Israel, to you shall come Emmanuel. And even Emmanuel solvi Israel, qui gemet in exilio, privatus Dei filio. Nascitur pro Israel. Nascitur pro Israel. Nascitur pro